And once again, everyone listening, we are live. The first Big 10 mascot. Tyler, how the hell are we doing today, baby?
Woo! We're doing great today. Glad to
We're
be. Thanks
Herky
for
the
having us.
Hawkeye, man.
Yes,
As you can
sir.
tell, I've got some Iowa merch going on. Have to represent the Hawkeyes right
Hey,
now.
love to see it. Me as
Oh,
well. Got the
yeah,
Iowa crew neck.
it's so sick. You love to see that.
We're
Um,
matching.
what we do for every single one of these interviews is we pull up some photos and some good little content for behind the scenes that we like to elaborate and explain on. So I'm just going to share my screen really quick and then we're going to get to that. So number one, who is this sexy man right here?
So that right there is Herky the Hawkeye, the one and only, the big guy from the University of Iowa. He's a big hawk. It's in the name. Black and yellow, that's our school colors. But basically, man on campus. Everybody knows him. He's lovable. He's tough, but he's a guy that you want to be around. That's for sure.
So I Googled it and I found one answer, but where does the term Herky come from?
So Herky's full name is actually Hercules H. Hawk. And so Herky is just a shortened version of Hercules. So
So
yeah.
what are the origin stories behind him? Do people kind of know? I know all these West Coast schools are kind of more recent, but I feel like the University of Iowa has existed for so long. So maybe people don't know the origins, but where is that passed down for you guys?
So Herky is about 75 years this year, I think. He's pretty old. As for how Herky originally came about, it's honestly a little bit of just he kind of appeared. Iowa has this is actually, I think, their third mascot. At one point, they used to have a bear. It was Birch the bear. It was a live bear that they had on campus. And one winter, actually, it escaped its cage, and they just had a bear roaming around campus trying to catch it. And they found him in a tree down by the river. And then we had a dog. I don't remember his name. And then Herky just appeared one day. So third mascot in the line of University of Iowa, and he stuck around for a long time. So
That's
yeah,
another thing. The University of Oklahoma also, I was talking to Boomer. He's like, yeah, we had a dog mascot at one point in time. I feel like all mascots are like all schools are obligated to have a dog at one point in
at
time.
some point, it's part of the mascot lifestyle, part of the lifespan.
All right, let's go to the next one right here, baby. Is that loading? I don't know if it's loading.
I only
Oh,
see the first frame. Oh, there we
oh,
go.
there we
Slow and
go.
steady.
You know, there we go. I'll put it in post. But so that is Kinnick Stadium, I do believe, right?
Yes, sir. That is Kinnick. And this video specifically, this is during our run out. So for Iowa, our big tradition is they play back in black, and then all the players run out on the field. Herky comes out on his gator that you see there.
Mm.
And this game was from a couple years ago when Iowa was, I believe, number 3 and Penn State was number 4. And this was from that game, and that was the most electric I've ever felt seeing Kinnick in my life. Like, I've been going to Iowa games my whole life because I grew up there. And that was just absolutely insane. When you were standing on the field, when the fans would be screaming, there would be like a bunch of wind, and then they would stop screaming for a play or something, and the wind would just stop. So like all the wind was just being created by fans yelling. It was absolutely nuts.
So you're from Iowa, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And Iowa is a state. I kind of feel this with the state of Oregon a little bit. We don't have an NFL team, so college sports are pretty big here. What does Iowa football mean to someone who grows up in Iowa?
It's huge. Iowa Hawkeye football, like especially when it comes time for rivalry season, like when we play Iowa State, when we play Nebraska, those games are absolutely huge. Like towns just like stop functioning and everybody stops and just sits and watches the game. Everybody's having a party. It's a big get together. Iowa football is huge in Iowa. It's a big thing.
So who is the main rival? Because you have your Big 10 rival, new, at least with Nebraska. That's the Battle of the Corn, I guess. And then you have actual Iowa State. So in your experience with these different fan bases, who would you consider number one and who is just the little brother?
So let's actually let's back up for a second. So Iowa, they are notorious for having, I would say, too many rivals. Because we have like 4 or 5 different trophies with other Big Ten, well, with other teams. We have one with Wisconsin, one with Nebraska, one with Iowa State, and one with Minnesota. And we have trophies that we battle for every year with those teams. And of those teams, I would say Iowa State's probably our biggest rival, just because same state team. We're both can be decent. Iowa's been pretty good for the last 10 years or so. But it bounces back and forth sometimes, and I would say they're probably our biggest rival. As for the little brother, though, definitely Minnesota or Nebraska. They're both just not good. So we just stomp them both every year.
What about the weird thing about Big Ten ball is my uncle went to Northwestern and he was there during their like 3 season losing streak. And so they finally won a game. So I feel like Northwestern always is like suddenly one year they're 10-2, and then the next year like they beat Nebraska and nobody else.
Yeah, I don't like Northwestern. They always beat us when like we should just demolish them. And ever since I was little, like Northwestern, for whatever reason, I just don't like them that much.
They're
But
the
that's okay.
Stanford,
Yeah,
literally
yeah,
just upsetting people out of absolutely nowhere. But yeah, no,
yeah.
Kinnick seems this video kind of goes once. See, it doesn't go, and then it goes again. But Kinnick seems huge. How many people can fit in Kinnick?
I believe right now it's 68 or 69,000. Kind of nice.
Wow.
Um, but it used to be 70 plus thousand just because that end zone that we're looking at right now,
Mhm.
they remodeled that. And so we lost a couple thousand seats because of that, but it's pretty nice now.
How
Uh,
how how big is Iowa City?
it's like 70,000 people. Like it's probably our second or third biggest city in Iowa. I actually no, it's not. I don't remember what number it is, but yeah, it's about 70,000 people. It's not huge, but for Iowa, it's decently large.
So I was going to the Barstool Iowa page. I was trying to find some lore and some good bits. Uh, the corn pope, or sorry, I just keep on saying corn. That's probably
No, you're
an
good.
offensive term to local Iowans, but that's another one. The Big Ten West that does not have Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and those annoying guys. So what's it like playing in the Big Ten West? Do you guys always like beat up on each other? Who's the one that's usually pretty good? Recently, it's been
I,
Iowa.
yeah, I was usually kind of up there, but it's funny that you have this GIF up there because I'm always usually pretty nervous for Wisconsin.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would say I was probably like two or three pretty consistently
Mhm.
in our version of the West in our version of the Big Ten. Um, but yeah, I would say Wisconsin's a pretty good powerhouse there.
Wisconsin Classic, and there we go, the man himself. Is this you up in there?
Yeah, that's me in there. So this is from when we went to a bowl game my junior year, I believe. And this was actually so nice to be able to go to this. This was on New Year's Eve. That's why there's fireworks and stuff going on.
Mhm.
It was nice because we actually went to Florida for like 2 weeks out of the winter. And so we were sitting in like 70, 80 degree weather while we were at these games and stuff. And not gonna lie, it was hot as hell while I was in the suit, but like just to be a person there, it was great. Because back home it was probably negative something. Oregon, it probably gets really cold up there too. So it was nice to be able to escape that Iowa cold for a couple weeks, and just one of the perks of the job, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I see on the news. The Arctic freeze is taking over. If you're in like Minnesota or Iowa, it's negative 30 degrees out. I'm like,
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah,
But
horrible.
you was that against Kentucky?
Yes, we've actually played Kentucky for the last 2 years in bowl games.
I was about to say, what were Iowa's fans' reaction to getting stuck with Kentucky again?
Well, I personally was pretty happy about it because I remember the year before where this video is actually from, we it was a close game and then we lost like in the last few minutes and then
Mm,
the whole like crowd just started chanting SEC, SEC, and
mm.
like for whatever reason I was just like, man, fuck this. We're the better team than them. And so I was happy this year when we got to play them again, and we actually ended up showing them up this year, just kind of got our revenge on them. But
That,
it's weird that we keep playing them.
that was one photo I also saw on the Barstool Iowa page. It said call overturned and there's 40 seconds left and it was just Herky just sitting there.
Yup.
Pissed. Was that you?
No, that was actually my buddy who's currently still on the team. But I remember when that happened, I look over at him and he just like sits down, plops down, and then just a mass of just camera people came rushing towards him and like started recording and stuff. So that was a big moment for him.
That's so tough. Is this a Sky Herky?
Yeah, so they actually for the Iowa State game 2 years ago, they invited us out. They're like, "Hey, we want to have Herky fly." And I was like, okay, let's do this. And they had me like dangling out the side of this helicopter here as they were practicing for the flyover for over Jack Trice, that's Iowa State Stadium.
Mhm.
And they just wanted Herky inside there. And so we just flew over the stadium. So Herky finally got to fly. Risk management had no say in this one.
Something that stands out to me, we'll just open this right now, is the line of sight. I feel like for Herky, I feel like is the sides are really good, but the fact you can't see anything directly in front of you, what's the visibility like in the head right here?
Yeah, so definitely you can see out of the teeth. And so yep, you have that beak in the middle. And so like if I were to look like directly at you, I'd have to go like this or like
Mhm.
this, like kind of turn my head to the left or turn my head to the right. And at first it's like weird to get used to, but obviously once you've been doing it for a while, it's kind of natural. And also it kind of helps with his movements to seem more bird-like, if you will, like because he's kind of like birds kind of do that with their head. They kind of like gawk one way and the other. So yeah, he actually has really good vision though. I've put on some other heads from other mascots around the country, and Herky, in my opinion, has the best vision I've seen out of anybody.
What's the worst visibility head you've put on?
It's funny that we were kind of talking crap about this team earlier, but probably Northwestern.
Are they
They're the
what's his name?
Wildcats.
Willie? Is it Willie?
Yeah, Willie the Wildcat.
So there's
Just
two
like
Willies, Kansas State and him. Okay.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're two multiple Willie the Wildcats, man. The funniest shit actually is the worst visibility I put on is Wilbur the Wildcat. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, I've told this story before, but he just has like that small little mouth where he has like
oh,
multiple teeth jutting in front of it. So,
oh my goodness.
because our championship game is in Las Vegas, so we were walking around the streets interacting. He accidentally stepped on a homeless dude's change jar, and
Oh no.
it was pretty embarrassing. But I mean,
Damn.
man, those
That's
Wildcats.
tough. Not a good look.
So this is right here, UCA. Did Herky end up winning a championship at UCA?
So he did end up going to nationals. He did not get first. He actually ended up getting seventh, which sounds pretty far down the line. But I assume that you know about nationals. For everybody listening that doesn't know about it, it's this competition where you have to submit like a minute long video, maybe a couple minutes, just a compilation of your whole season so far of just your mascot being themselves. And the top 10 teams get selected to go to nationals. And so it was a pretty big honor for us because Herky usually ends up getting like 11th place, like just not making the cut.
Mhm.
And so that was super cool that we got to go that year. And I was in suit, I performed our skit, and we moved up from 8th place to 7th place. So I was happy with that.
What was your skit?
So we did a skit based around video games, like retro video games.
Nice.
So we had Mario involved. We built an arcade machine and stuff. Yeah, had Pac-Man in there and everything. And yeah, so it was fun to go through that process.
Yeah, I get to interact with the Chip the Buffaloes. They always show
Yeah.
me their cool little skits, and the Butch T Cougars. I've always heard just which were the other mascots there? Were they cool to interact with, or were they all taking their job very seriously?
I think everybody was pretty fun to interact with, but probably come to no shock the Obbies were super serious.
Hmm.
Auburn. So yeah, they pulled up with their props like in giant wooden boxes to like keep it secret that they rolled in. And then they didn't take it out of the boxes until it was like their time to go. It was like super secretive. And I was like, all right, classic Obby right there.
Yeah, I talked to the Florida and Georgia guys, and both times they're like looking around, like, "Where's Avi?" And like, "Oh, he's asleep right now. I gotta go wake him up really quick." Oh, and then like they'd knock on the door. Oh, Avi, and like he come out and just like they're wearing their Avi's friends shirts. I've never personally interacted with an Avi. I've heard they're very professional, very good at what they do, but just the culture behind that program is just some of the most like locked down shit. Like
Oh yeah.
you are not gonna see it.
Yeah, I would like they're a fun team to hate on for that reason, but they are, in my opinion, one of the most impressive teams like in the nation.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, they're very secretive about who is Obby and stuff, and I feel like as they probably should be, as most mascots should be, but that's not always the case. So
How
yeah, but
secretive is when you're on campus? How secret is the Herky identity? Are you allowed to kind of get that out a little bit, or?
a little bit. You're told like basically what you would expect to hear, like don't really tell anybody, you can tell your family and stuff. But so basically my whole family knew, and I told like my roommates and stuff because they were gonna find out eventually. And what I found though that was hard to control is after I had told this small group of people, suddenly people that I didn't even know were coming up to me and being like, "Hey, you're Herky, right?" And I'm like, "How'd you find out about that?" Like, because word of mouth, it just spreads. So we try to keep it secret, but it can be difficult. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
a lot of us were in Greek life. So once your fraternity house knows, then suddenly every fraternity knows, and then just random people will come up to you when you're trying to get Subway, and you're like, Jesus Christ. So there's the pros to that are you can walk around feeling kind of cool, and like if someone's like looking at you, you might kind of know. But the cons are like when you're in suit and people come up to you and like, yo, Durs. And I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
well, especially when our like guys get like front row and they just start yelling at me, give me the fucking chainsaw. That's like our prop, the
Yeah.
chainsaw we use. Also, this one, I saw this on the news, and this was an interesting one. Can you explain what happened? What was the 2 a.m. game?
Yeah, I was there for that. This was probably my least favorite game to be at ever. It was just rain delay after rain delay, or I guess not rain delays, lightning.
Mhm.
Uh, so we were it was a late start to a game originally. I believe it was like 6 p.m. So not like super late, but later than what we were used to. And it got to maybe like almost halftime, and then thundercloud is rolling in, and then lightning strike, and they say, "All right, 40 minutes, unless there's another lightning strike, then it's 40 minutes from that lightning strike." And so it just kept happening and happening. And we tried getting back on the field at one point, and then another lightning strike, and just kept going on. And so we were there till 2 a.m. It was nuts. And we thought that the coaches were eventually just going to call it, be like, okay, that's good. But we were beating up on this other team so good that they were like, the only way we can win is if we just wait them out. So they didn't forfeit. Our coach wasn't going to forfeit. So we were just stuck there all night, and it was brutal. But you got to see who the diehard fans were. I think there was probably about 100 people in the stadium by the time it ended. But yeah,
I
it was.
definitely would have been there with like some Jägermeister at like 1 in the morning. The stands are empty. There's a guy brought in his dog, I think.
Yeah.
So you had to be in suit at 2 a.m. during that.
Yeah, the way that we set up our football games, it was set up so I wasn't actually in suit at 2 a.m. We have multiple people rotating.
Mhm.
So we'll have a person for every quarter, a separate person. I know some other schools they'll have a person do a half or a full game, but
Mhm.
we like to give our guys a little bit more of a breather, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Just keep
yeah.
him fresh so he's always up and has a lot of energy. But no, I was not in suit at 2 a.m. I was on the sidelines assisting.
Oh, but you're on the sideline, so you were there at the game.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
was I think it was the University of Nevada, question
that
mark.
sounds correct. Yeah.
So just like beating up on a smaller team just there at 2 in the morning. I would have made it like a lot of fun. I would just go do whatever the hell I wanted.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was a great time, that's for sure.
Now, another interesting dynamic in the state of Iowa is this great guy, George Kittle, tight end university. Is first off, is Iowa tight end university? Yes or no?
Oh yeah, 100%. Nobody else.
And then we heard this little guy, his name was Brock Purdy. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Mhm.
What is
I know about.
what are your guttural interactions seeing Brock Purdy, an Iowa State quarterback, throwing to George Kittle and going to the NFC Championship game?
You know what? At first, when he first started playing this season, I did not like it really at all. But then as the season continued, as it progressed, I saw the just really how well he was playing and how well he was like interacting with George and Brock. They were friends, so that was cool to see. As they should be, they're teammates now. But yeah, no, towards the end I started rooting for the 49ers to win because I'm a Packers fan. We didn't even come close to making it to the
Mhm.
playoffs. Well, we kind of did. Doesn't matter. But it was funny. I was actually so I recently moved to Texas. I'm down here now. And I was at a watch party with some of my work buddies who are diehard Cowboys fans, and we watched Brock and George Kittle kind of beat up on him a little bit. And like I was trying not to like cheer too hard or anything for him just because like I'm still new down here and I didn't want
Mhm.
to like upset the Cowboys fans, but that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I'm from the Bay Area, so I'm a diehard Niners fan. So Brock
Yeah.
Purdy is our savior. Jimmy Garoppolo, dude, I cannot stand. And also
Yeah.
that, yeah, the Cowboys and all the times we've beaten up on the Packers in the playoffs. I gotta
Mhm.
apologize for that one. But
Yeah.
Yeah, Brock Purdy's been good, dude. I rooted for him to beat the Ducks in the Fiesta Bowl, and they did.
Hey.
Speaking of, I'm just gonna skip to the. Oh God, there we go.
Oh,
Is an enemy is my friend. Wait, how's that go? I don't know how the term goes, but all I gotta say is I watched this game because that was Luca Garza, right?
yeah, I believe so.
How is Iowa basketball doing this year? I haven't been following Iowa basketball too much. Are they doing good this year? I think they were ranked at one point.
They're doing all right this year. It's pretty Iowa of them this year. They're about average.
Okay.
Um, but
Speaking of being Iowa of them, one of my favorite Twitter pages is the Sickos Committee. And have you heard of the Sickos Committee?
I have not actually.
The Sickos Committee is someone who just wants as many turnovers as possible. Like he would love a game to go like 3-0. Um, so he had in his polls Iowa as the number one sickos, and and like right here, punt downs, punt, 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 punt.
Yep.
Teams that have scored more than Iowa. Iowa this year has gotten a pretty gnarly reputation for their offense. What's been your reaction to the recent Iowa slander that's been going on?
All I'm gonna say is Brian Ferentz needs to be fired. No, I'm kidding, kind of. Uh, well, yeah, it's that's a situation where you should never hire somebody that you can't fire because Brian Ferentz is our offensive coordinator and he is also our head coach's son. So and he's our offense has just not been very good this last year. But we recently picked up a quarterback from Michigan. So hopefully this next year that'll kind of turn some things around for us.
Cade
But
McNamara, right? Yeah, I
yup,
wrote his name
that's
down
the
right
guy.
there.
That's the guy right there.
So speaking of, is that all the photos, or did I have any more? I thought I had the like the childhood wave up there, but we'll get to that. In terms of, I'll pause right there and get his cute little face. In terms of playing other schools, what's it like playing such historic programs like Michigan and Ohio State? What are your interactions with like their fan bases?
Yeah, those two teams, it's always fun to go play against them. I wouldn't say that our two fan bases ever really get the chance to like butt heads too much just because they're such powerhouses of schools. Like leading up to games always be super hyped. And I'm like, what if we win? You know, because there has been times in the past where like we end up like there was a couple years ago, I think like 5 years ago or so, we just absolutely demolished Ohio State. And that was super awesome to watch on TV when I was in high school. But going into those games, like personally, like there's hope, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, all right, we're playing like a stellar program here. So they're probably just gonna whoop up on us a little bit. And so I think for Iowa fans, it's kind of a little bit of that mentality of like, we just know we're gonna get our butts kicked. So like we'll talk our shit for a little bit, but we know the end result usually.
That's so sick. So what's it like? Have you ever been to the Big House or the Horseshoe or any stadiums like that?
I have not. The only stadiums that I've been to for Herky is Minnesota's stadium and Wisconsin stadium.
What
So
was what was the atmosphere like in did you guys win both those games, or
we won at Minnesota and we lost at Wisconsin.
so which atmosphere was more hostile in your opinion? Which one was more scary?
Probably Wisconsin was more scary. So when at their stadiums, their walls to hold the fans back from the field are like super high. They're
Mm-hmm.
probably like 10 feet tall, which that might be normal for a stadium, but at Kinnick, the walls only come up to like here on me. Like they're
Okay.
only 4 or 5 feet high. So to me, like I felt very safe at both places. But I would try and do my best and to like get up and like bicker with fans, like reaching up at them and stuff. And Wisconsin fans, they would throw hands. That's for sure.
They would throw
Uh,
hands. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Minnesota fans. I actually had one little kid at Minnesota, like literally, like just start punching my beak, and I was like, "Dude, chill." Like, but no, it was all right. They're both teams that we bicker back and forth between, so
Mhm.
not too bad.
So have what's the interaction like with Iowa State fans? How deep does that one go?
That's very hostile. There was Iowa State. They love their basketball. That is for sure. And there was one time a couple years ago, I went to Iowa State for a basketball game to perform in suit, and they had me sitting right next to their student section.
Oh God.
I was like, all right, here we go. And this is when I was still like fairly new to Herky. And so I didn't know like how hard to like push that boundary of just like messing with fans. And so I just kind of tried messing with them for the majority of the game. And like they probably could have like broken the suit with how much they were like trying to like get at me and stuff. Um, and afterwards, my coach actually came up to me. He's like, "Hey, don't do that. Like, they will like destroy this thing." But
One of
yeah,
my
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say one of my favorite stories so far is from Super Frog was telling me he's at a Texas Tech game and he was near one of those super tall walls and someone just grabbed their arm down and just pulled him up. And they were like, he was like literally getting like choked
Oh
and
my
like
gosh.
being pulled back and forth. I haven't had any interactions like that. I've said my worst one is at Colorado.
Mm.
They threw limes and batteries at me. And then, they just like bounced off the head. But there's one part where there's like an incline right in the student section, right behind the field goal post. So I
Yeah.
walked up there with Chip and we were trying to do a bit. And just so many people were booing that the marketing lady had to be like, you can't finish this. Like, you got to go. Like, you can't do this. I've been at a Washington, Oregon stadium. Oregon, they just like yell at you, but it's like, whatever. I've been to a lot of these different stadiums and goddamn Colorado. Those are some scary guys.
Damn.
So
That's
in Uh, I'm giving you all my Big Ten questions because we're having a Sparty on. Actually, you've heard it here first. Sparty's coming
oh.
on. So I got to ask about the University of Michigan or Ohio State. But what is the Big Ten? I always see all these Twitter beefs between the SEC and the Big Ten. So what
Mm.
makes the Big Ten unique in your opinion?
Well, I think the Big Ten's unique because like the SEC is the football powerhouse. That's kind of known. And I think the Big Ten is a conference where they end up finding themselves on the stage to compete with the SEC most often, I would say, compared to other conferences,
Mhm.
like with Michigan and Ohio State and that stuff. And but the Big Ten as well, it's interesting because across all sports, we usually are like up there with a lot of the other teams across the
Mhm.
nation. And I would say like that's something somewhat unique is across the board, across all sports, to have multiple teams up there in the top of the whatever the sport is. But I would say that's one thing about the Big Ten. And another, I mean, I'm sure you could say this about every conference, but just a lot of history in every single school that's in there.
Mhm.
You could dive into like a week's worth of content on just one school in the Big Ten, and you could
Mhm.
probably do that for every single school that's in there.
I've
Um,
I've always liked that the Big Ten. I've always considered them the closest to the Pac-12, and I know most people would probably consider that an insult because most people don't like the Pac-12. I get it, but I've always loved the Rose Bowl tradition. Just you get one of these guys, you get one of our guys, and they duke it out in the big stadium in Los Angeles, the Rose Bowl. I've always liked the history behind it. It seems like the Big Ten is always evolving as well. You
yeah,
get Maryland. I think even Penn State was added a while ago, but Iowa's been there since how long? They've been one of the first, right?
yeah, I was been there as far as I know. I think it's interesting that we're adding all these teams as well. Like we've recently added Maryland, like you said, we've added Rutgers, and then there's been talks of possibly UCLA or something like that.
Oh, USC and UCLA are confirmed.
Oh, they are. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
I
I
was
never
about
knew
to
if that
ask
got
what
confirmed or not.
yeah, what are your thoughts on a UCLA and USC coming? Daniel leaving he's the guy doing it with us, Tommy Trojan, traitor.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think that's pretty cool. Not gonna lie, like the people who are in the sports who are on the teams, they'll get some very cool opportunities to go to those schools and to have those schools come to us, meet some new people and stuff. It's interesting that I said like each school in the Big Ten is like very historic, very traditional because for the Big Ten to constantly be switching up like this doesn't seem like a very traditional conference in that
Mhm.
sense, but every school within it, I would say, is pretty traditional. Uh, but yeah, no, I think it's going to be interesting. That's for sure. A lot of schools are joining because the Big Ten has money, I would say. But
Don't gotta flex on me like that, man. Hey man, San Diego State and SMU, baby. New
yeah,
powerhouses. I've just been worried because the talks with them leaving, they're like Oregon, Washington are next, and then Arizona, they'll leave to the Big 12, and I'm like, oh, what about Oregon State guys? What about me? And like, oh, Mountain West. I'm like, shit.
Ah.
Nothing wrong with the Mountain West. I love Boise State and I love a lot of these schools, but I'd rather play Washington than New Mexico and Air Force. That's all I gotta say. In terms of Big Ten traditions, tailgating at Big Ten, tailgating outside of Kinnick. When you wake up and you have to suit up for Herky that day, what does your schedule look like for that day?
Yeah, no problem. So we get to the stadium probably like 3 or 4 hours before the game starts. And then we'll go around 2 tailgates on that gator that we showed earlier. That's Herky's Herky Mobile. And he stands on the back and we drive around to tailgates. He'll hop off at a tailgate, interact with fans for probably about 10 to 30 minutes at each one. And then we drive over to a track, an indoor track, which is next to Kinnick. And that's where we have the band show. So our marching band goes in there and they play a bunch of their songs and stuff. And the cheer team's there, dance team's there, Herky's there. And then we go into Kinnick. And then from there so that's one person that does all that pregame. And that's probably lasts like an hour or two. And then we'll go in and we'll do our run out, which is where he goes out on the Herky Mobile, comes back, does the national anthem, all that stuff. That's another person. And then first, second, halftime, third, and fourth quarter are usually all different people. And then we have post game as well. So go ahead.
Oh no, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. You're good.
I was about to say you have 6 different mascots for one day.
Yeah, so our magic number that we try and shoot for is to have 7 people on the team. That hasn't always been the case. I know after COVID hit, and before COVID hit, we had like 5 people. Then after it hit, it was just me and one other dude. So that's not always the case, but 7's our magic number that we like to have. And yeah, makes everything run a lot smoother.
So do you ever drive? So do you drive the Gator, or do people drive you?
People drive Herky. So Herky's literally like standing in the back of it. He has like a big bar that he has to hang on to while they're driving, and then he can like wave and stuff to fans and whatnot off the back. But yeah, he's standing in the back of it and someone else drives.
Okay, because there's this notorious habit of mascots driving that shit. Boomer literally telling me how he ran over people. Utah Swoop has the Swoop Mobile. So I was in Salt Lake City and he just puts on the head and drives like a car in like roads in like a big city. I was like suited up in the passenger seat, like, what? This can't be fucking legal. He's like turning his head, like just like look around.
Oh my gosh.
The Swoop Mobile is pretty notorious. I've heard mascots just drive that. For us, when we drive to pre-games, the mascot gets the front seat, and we do like 3 for a game. We do pre-game, first half, second half, and then they just put the 2 handlers in the back. But like there's like no, what's it called, back part, so like you could really fall out.
Oh yeah.
So notoriously, that's the most dangerous part of the game for us, is holding on for dear lives, just like blasting ass down the road, screaming, because like we've almost fallen out before.
Oh my gosh, that sounds ridiculous.
But yeah, so you run out, and you have like a little changing area like right there in the stadium.
Kind of, yeah. So where you have the teams tunnels and stuff, we have like, so team tunnel, right? And then before you go into it, there's like a little hallway that's cheer, dance, and Herky's locker room. And within that locker room, Herky has his own, it's basically a closet. Like, it's not very big. But that's where we change in and out at. And to go from that closet onto the field, I would say it maybe takes 10 seconds, like if he's walking. So it's, yeah, not far away at all.
We have the same exact thing, except it's like kind of open. Like you can just kind of, it's like this open area. And so you kind of have to curve in, go to the very back, but still some students can see you. So I've like taken off my head, been like panting, chugging Gatorade, and some like student like looked at me, pointed at me. It's like I blew him a kiss, and I just put the head back on. So you were also a mascot before and after COVID, weren't you?
Yes. So I joined in December of 2019. Yep, that's correct. December of 2019. And then COVID hit in like March of 2020. So I had mascot experience for like 3 months, and then COVID hit. And then I did it up until I graduated this most recent December of 22.
Yeah, I was like freshman year. That was March or May 2019. That's when I got it. So I got to experience it before and after COVID. I was actually with at our Pac-12 basketball championship. I was with Chip the Buffalo and Harry the Husky. We're just watching
Yeah.
the game, and then one of them was like, "Guys, the NBA just got canceled," and another one's like, "Guys, there's coronavirus on the strip right now." And we're like, "Oh shit!" Well,
Yeah.
so we had to do the mascot interviews and not interviews, so mascot auditions, tryouts during COVID,
Mhm.
and for us, just my friend just showed up and like, "You're the right height, you got it." It's gotten more serious now, but what was the experience of mascotting and trying to keep that alive during COVID?
A lot of social media. Herky's social media accounts had not actually been active since like 2015, and that was my main push on the while I was there, was to get those back up and running. And this was kind of my chance. Brand new to the team, I say, hey, can I take over these accounts? Just give me a suit, and I'll make stuff from home. And so we got Herky on TikTok, got his Instagram back up and running, Twitter, Facebook, you name it. And that was our main focus, was a lot of social media stuff, just making videos like every week during COVID, which we still try and do that now. But that's kind of where that started, was creating that momentum during COVID.
What was the audition process like, and what has it been like in the past?
So I'll tell you how it went for me, and then I'll tell you how we did it for COVID. So when I tried out, it was actually, since I joined in the middle of the season, I just emailed the Spirit Squad coach and I was like, "Hey, I want to be Herky," and he's like, "Sure, come to the basketball arena and we'll have you try out." And so first thing that we did was we learned Herky's walk, and I got the hang of that pretty quickly.
What's the
Uh,
Herky walk? Is it like a
yeah, actually, the most generic mascot walk you could think of. It's like when you step, like, let's say you step with your left foot, right arm comes up to like here, like you're checking your watch, and
uh
like you're kind of lean forward a little bit, like you got like a mission, like you know where you're going, you got places to be, kind
mm,
of thing. And then you're always just kind of like looking side to side as well, because the teeth you can't see straight
yeah,
forward. So like to see straight forward, you got to kind of do that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so first thing I learned was the walk. And then they ran me through a bunch of improv situations, like, all right, you're in a boat and you're going down a river, and oh no, that river's now a waterfall. And oh my gosh, okay, you climb over to shore and you're in quicksand. What do you do? Like that kind of stuff. So they just want to see how big your actions are and how you're reacting. And then we do prop work at tryouts as well. So like they'll give me like a ball and they'll be like, all right, do as many things with this as you can, but it can't be a ball, basically. So
Mhm.
like it could be like a hat, it could be a bowl of soup, it could be a dog, you could walk it. So you can just do a lot of different things with it. But yeah, so that's kind of how our tryouts usually go. During COVID, we tried doing the same thing just over Zoom.
Mhm.
And we did something different. We told them, we had multiple different tryout sessions, and we told them for one of them, we were like, hey, you have to make a prop, and bring that and show us how to do that, or how it works, what you would do with it. And we just did it, everybody from their apartments, from the dorm, wherever it was. And it was funny to watch, but yeah, we
Yeah,
tried to keep it as consistent as it normally was.
Florida was telling me he had like a bumblebee costume and he had to put on his fucking bumblebee costume over Zoom. He's like, this is humiliating. Fucking uh but in terms of like all the guys that tried out, how close is the Herky squad? I mean, we're not gonna include this photo. We talked about this beforehand, but you guys all got ass tattoos.
Yeah, so I don't know if your school did this or not, but I was under the impression that it's kind of like a nationwide known thing. Like I know Minnesota does this and whatnot as well. Um,
Colorado. Yep.
yep, yep.
Our tattoo session is planned for in a month.
Hey, let's go. Did
Everyone,
you guys get it on the butt cheek as well?
oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so basically, yeah, we all got those tattoos together. Like once you've been, for our rule is once you've been Herky for a year, you can get the ass tat. I know for some people it's like once you're done with that program, you can get the ass tat. But yeah, we all got Herky on our booties, that's for sure. But yeah, Herky team, we're all fairly close. So I would consider them some of my best friends that I made in college. And yeah, it's been a great time.
Yeah, dude, that's another thing. The universal mascot ass tattoos. No one planned it. No one was said in that League of Extraordinary Mascot 1,000 group chat that we're
Yeah.
all gonna get ass tats. It's just a universal thing. In terms of like the close friends, though, I've made some of my closest friends just being on the mascot squad because going to an away game, being like hoteled beforehand, and you're just with them, and you just get try to get in as much trouble as possible without actually getting yelled at
Yep.
is some of the most is Herky, is that a program where you ask for forgiveness, or do you or beg for forgiveness or ask for permission?
Um, I would say it's half and half. Like if there's something that we really want to do, then we ask for forgiveness. But like most of the time, we'll kind of ask for permission through our coaches and whatnot. But every now and then, we'll like squeak something in there where it's like, sorry.
So
Uh,
what's one of those things you're able to squeak through?
well, I one time went to a wedding in Nebraska, and it was for an ex dance team member. And so I went there and I was like, I went there by myself. They told me to take one of the university cars, and I was like, okay. They had it in a hotel, and I just spent the night there. And basically, I went and was having a great time. And just like at this point, I was just having fun because I had been in suit for like an hour or two at this point, and
Mm.
way too long. But basically, I was on the dance floor, and like I know like the things that you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. But there's this one big dude who was like backing it up, twerking towards me. And I was like, this man's got some ass on him. And I just start smacking it so hard, like left and right, both hands. And everybody loved it. They ate it up. They formed a circle around me and Herky, Herky, just because I smacked some ass. And I had a great time. That wedding was nuts. We were allowed to accept tips. They tipped me $700 for that. That was the biggest tip I've ever gotten in my life. It was ridiculous. Um,
700.
yeah. And so basically when I went home, we have a meeting the next day, and everybody sits down. The first thing my coach does, he goes, Tyler, can you explain this to me? And he turns his phone around, and it's a video of Herky smacking this big dude's ass, both arms, just windmilling it. And I was like, dude had a dumpy. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
Those mascot meetings were always the when you get in the group chat, oh fuck, we like they need to see all the mascots in the basketball stadium like
yeah,
tonight. Those are always the times where I was always the one getting people in trouble. So I was always had to tell them like, don't worry about it, guys. Like you're probably fine. I'm probably the one that got in trouble for
yeah.
like wall twerking during a football game when we're up like 40 points or just some stupid shit like that. Have you ever hosted any mascots that have come down? Have you ever interacted with any of them like that?
How do you mean, like hosting like the people themselves and
Or
whatnot?
like if the well, kind of both. Like if Purdue Pete, Purdue Pete, I didn't want to mix him up with Pistol Pete. If
No, you're
Purdue
good.
Pete or Bucky Badger comes down in Iowa City, do you guys like go out with them the night before? Or, like,
So, I would love to if that were the case. But normally how it goes is they do show up the night before, but like, um, usually in my experience at least, most teams in the Big Ten are pretty locked down. Like if you leave like the hotel at all, like somebody's gonna know. Like, and so they're usually fairly strict. So we haven't ever really gone out with any of these teams in Iowa City or anything like that, but definitely have gotten to know them in other ways through mutual experiences. One time all the Big Ten mascots, we all went to Chicago, and we were there for like a week just for one event. And so we all just tore that town up. Like we all went out. Sparty, he's a lightweight, man. He got drunk. But yeah, so no, there's some experiences like that where like when we're all at like a mutual place, that's not our own home, I guess. That's when we can all get kind of wild, but like not in Iowa City, no.
okay, yeah, we've had other mascots because Corvallis is a small. When I say Corvallis, think of Ames. Same exact shit. Same college town. Um, they're always up in a hotel in Portland, which is about an hour and a half away, or they're in Eugene, the dirty huge University of Oregon, about like 30 minutes south. So we'll always just like typically text them like, all right, you guys arriving, we're gonna go pick you up right now. Like, so we'll go pick them up, we'll bring them back down, and then like we'll usually get one of the pledges from our fraternity to be the DD to drive us all back. So
Okay,
so we
that's
like
awesome.
to, and also I definitely want to hear about this Chicago uh unification of all the mascots because ours is in Las Vegas and it's during
Okay.
Dead Week, the week right before finals, which is I don't know who decides to bring 24 like college students to Las Vegas for a week. But so what's it like in Chicago? What's that like? And I can cut any part of this out. Don't worry about it.
Um, yeah, no, that was, I bet, okay. Every single interview that you do with other Big Ten mascots after this, ask all of them if they were at the Chicago trip, and you'll get some great stories out of this. But basically, like every night, we would have something to do, whether it would be like we would get in suit for a little bit during the day, and then like the rest of the day was ours to do whatever we wanted. And I would say one team that's notorious for like party hardy is Wisconsin for sure. And there was one time, I'm just gonna tell this story about Bucky right now because it's great. They went out the night we were there for it was the Big 10 10K, so it was a race, right? And we had to be at the start line at like 6 a.m. the next day or whatever. And the Buckies, they go out that night. And they said that they brought a girl back to their hotel room. And she was like, "Who's this Bucky that you guys keep talking about? Like, I want to meet Bucky." Like, she didn't know what Bucky was. She thought he was a person. And basically, they all go back at like 2 a.m. to the thing. They got to be up in 4 hours. They're hammered, right? And they go back. They wake up the next morning. We're all down in the lobby waiting. We're like, Bucky's not going to make it. We all know what happened the night before. They were all out. And they come trotting down in the lobby, like looking half alive, just like, oh, there goes. Like, and we find out that this girl that they brought back to their hotel room is just still there. And they got their laptops in there. They got like all their personal stuff in there. And they're like, yeah, I hope she just doesn't steal it. And like after the race, they come back and it's all still there. But during the race day, like Bucky was unwell. Like one of them had to like spend the most of the race on the bus, just like passed out. The other one would like didn't move at all when he was in suit. He was just like this. But yeah, so that's just one little example from the Chicago 10K race. I bet you'll get some good stories out of that, out of some of the other guys.
For us, what we've always done is we spend all day filming a commercial. We spend all day or like doing one thing or going to schools and recording stuff like that. So we're normally just on a bus, like super sweaty. And I remember like I was like, my friend, we had like a vape or something, like a Juul or a Soren, and we hit it. And we're like, dude, hopefully we're not the only ones. And then we're in the back of the bus, and we see every other mascot just doing like the. So we're like, okay, thank God we're not the only one. And then at night, that's when the chaos happened because everyone's a mascot. They all do their improv crazy shit. So when you hear like live music being played or something going on, all the mascots just start doing like the cha-cha slide or start doing some crazy stuff. Yeah. And also the Pac-12 championship game is always the weekend of like a rodeo.
Okay.
There's all these like dudes wearing cowboy hats. So we'd always go to these like country bars and like ride these mechanical bulls and just do the most stupid, crazy shit of all time.
That sounds like so much fun.
After the interview, I can tell you some good stories from that, but I may not be able to include some of those like that. That's a great story though. Chicago, I've seen the photos of all the mascots in front of the bean. In terms of like other mascots, who are like your closest like friends that you made during your time then? Which programs?
I would say we're probably closest with Minnesota, Goldie the Gopher. I personally have a couple of really close friends on Bucky, Wisconsin. But I would say that those are probably my closest ones. Currently, so I actually have one. I moved to San Antonio and I have a Goldie that's down here with me. So that was nice that we had that previous connection because now we're down here in San Antonio just living it up. But yeah, so I would say Wisconsin and Minnesota for sure.
Are any of the we don't need to get into specifics, but are any of the mascots like very stuck up or very just kind of like suit and proper? You don't have to name names, but
in the Big 10, the closest thing to that is Ohio State. They remind me of Abby a little bit. They're just a very professional program. But I don't know if I would call them stuck up necessarily.
Yeah.
They just take their stuff seriously.
I would say that about the Oregon Duck as well, because we were all taking different photos with the head swaps, and he was just like, yeah, no, like a lot of people know the Oregon Duck, and so if a single photo of him gets out like with the beaver wearing his head, like we might get in like real bad trouble.
Yeah.
So we probably can't do that. But I mean, they weren't like stuck up or anything. They were just like having to lock down their shit a little bit more.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to put on any of the other mascot heads?
Yeah, I've put on Goldie. That one was pretty awesome to put on because I don't know if you know this or not, but Goldie can spin his head in a full 360.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so they have like I put it on and I tried to just tried like whipping it around and stuff like, and that was awesome just to like actually try that just because I think that's I don't know of any other mascot that can do that. Um,
The,
maybe there's other ones, but
the duck could at one point in time, but
oh
right
really?
here we've got we've got all the mascots. Is that Illinois? Oh yeah, the
Oh,
Illini.
I've never seen that before.
So if I were to take a guess in terms of visibility for all these guys, I feel like the Herbie Huskers got to see great, right?
Yeah, I've never put that one on, but it looks pretty good.
The also the Penn State Nittany Lion that feels like kind of like our Cal Oski, like they made the original mascot suit and they never changed it.
Yep. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Every time Penn State comes into town and I hear people talking about the mascot, it's always something along the lines of it looks like a costume you could buy at like a Halloween store. Like they need to update it.
I feel
But
like
I mean, tradition.
you could like make your own. Also, right here, baby.
Hey, look at that.
This might have been from the time. It's kind of funny to know that this guy might be just super hungover.
Yeah,
So
it's likely.
So whenever I tell people stories of being a mascot, obviously everyone's gonna know like, oh, running out with the chainsaw and upsetting a big team. But I like to kind of share the horror stories of the times I was like, that was fucking awful. But it was kind of funny because like you're in a mascot suit, so there's inherently like irony to it. What are some like your horror stories, or like just when shit went wrong and you had no clue what was going on?
I would say there was one time. So that Penn State game I was talking about earlier, when it was number 3 versus number 4,
Mm.
we won the game and everybody stormed the field. And we call our handlers Herky Security, name for it. And so I was security at the time. And I was my buddy was with Herky. And everybody just rushed right towards him. Like they obviously everybody on the field in general, but like Herky's on the field as well. So go after the mascot. And the way that Herky's helmet is set up is it's like a football strap
Mhm.
with like a football helmet inside of there. And everybody was just like trying to rip the head off. And the dude said like afterwards, like his neck like was fucking destroyed. Like it did not feel good at all. So I would say that's one bad one from him. But like one for myself, weddings, man, they do something to me. Um, there was one time I went to a wedding. It was actually one of my last events ever. I think it was my last like external event where it wasn't like for the university, it was like somebody else.
Mhm.
And I went to this wedding, butt fuck middle of nowhere, first of all. And the directions like had no clue where I was going. So I had to call the dude. I'm like, hey man, I don't even know where this is at. So it took me like 15 minutes to find the place when I was already in the town. So just not off to a good start. I go in there, start changing and whatnot, and I get on the suit and I found out my finger has a hole in it. And so like I have human fingers sticking out. And so I'm like in this like janitor's closet, like looking for like a Sharpie or something, like coloring my finger. Didn't find it at all. So for the whole event, I'm like holding my hands like this, like I'm Spider-Man or whatever, or like just in a fist. So like there's like an hour or so where like I have to make sure like my hand is always in a fist because like otherwise my finger's gonna show. And so that sucked as well. And then when I go out there, these people were feral, like rabid. I've never met people in my life who wanted to see Herky more than this group of people at this wedding. Because as soon as I go out, I'm getting thrown left and right. Like I can't control where I'm going. Like I'm literally getting thrown. Herky, take a picture. Like it was tough. And that was for almost the whole event. And like I had obviously you got the kids there who like want Herky to like bust out dance moves. Herky, do the gritty.
Hit the
Well,
grid. Yeah.
okay, I'll hit the gritty. And then one little kid who just kept saying like, "Hey, do this," and then he would throw his body on the floor. I'm like, what? So I just started doing like the worm or something, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, he actually did it!" And he just didn't let go of me for the rest of the night, and just kept saying, "Hey, do this," and throw his body on the floor.
Hey, Herky, go comatose. He just fucking goes limp.
Yeah. And then there was an Iowa State fan there who like
Oh God.
started like break dancing, and then he comes up and just like beats the fuck out of my head a little bit and then just like leaves. I'm like, what the hell was that?
Oh, dude, the breakdancing. I did a bowl game. It was the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl stories after. I've just said them so many episodes beforehand, so I'll just spare everyone on that, but I'll tell you that after. But we were against Utah State, and the thing about a lot of the Utah mascots is that a lot of them get that the Cosmo Cougar effect where they all learn these crazy dance moves and like just crazy like. So we had like a dance battle and I was like handling. So I watched the other guy. I watched like the Big Blue, I think was his name, just like
Okay.
start break dancing and doing flips and shit. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, dude, our head is like so I'm like, just like wave your tail at him. We do this thing where we just like we have a giant beaver tail. So we just wave your tail at him and just like ignore him. Just like we can't even interact. Like, yeah, we cannot is the head like really on you guys, or is it kind of like it'll kind of like move like a little bit after the fact?
I would say it's pretty on there. Like it's not really like you can move your head and like it'll stay. Like it's like if you move, it moves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I've noticed he's got the I refer to them as the clown shoes because we
Yes.
had the clown shoes. Are those also snug or are those a pain in the ass to walk around in?
Depends on who you ask. We had one dude whose feet were too big. And so they had good problem to have. But there's three straps on the inside that you strap around your shoe.
Oh, okay.
So you have your shoe inside the shoe. And so two over the top and then one around the back. His foot was too big, so he couldn't go around the back with the strap. So I'm sure for him it was a little uncomfortable, but for me it was perfect. Um,
So it
so
doesn't seem too bad. And it just seems like I'm looking at the outfit right here. Is it just one giant piece and then a jersey on top?
you got the legs, you got the top,
Oh,
for the
so
body. Yeah.
oh, are the legs like separate from the top?
Yep.
Oh, because for us it's just like one continued piece.
Oh
Like
yeah. No, I wish we had that, but it's like two separate pieces.
and another thing is during football season, I don't know how hot it gets in Iowa, but it gets pretty cold. Colorado was telling me that he will sweat through the suit and then the sweat will like freeze and he gets super cold in the
Oh,
suit. So what's it like sweating wise? How exhausted do you get on an average football game?
yeah, like after towards the end of my quarter that I'll do whatever. I'll have fans like if they go to take a picture of me and like if they put their arms around like my back, like this I will have sweat through my shirt, Herky's body, and Herky's shirt, like all layers of it. And like I'm a fairly sweaty guy. I'm not the sweatiest one on the team, but I'm a fairly sweaty guy. And people, if they would like take a picture with me like that, they'd be like, "Ew, Herky, you're super sweaty." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Let's just like get your picture."
Yeah, just like, fuck off. So what
Yeah.
what made you want to become Herky? What made you seek out the Herc, the
So this is
Hercules?
actually kind of a cool story ish. Um, my uncle was actually Herky.
Oh,
When he
really?
went to Iowa, yeah. And when he went, it was through a fraternity with a frat controlled Herky when he went. I believe it was the Tridouts. Not 100% on that. But anyways, that was always just kind of like in the back of my mind. And then my freshman year, I was at a football game and I remember seeing Herky out on the field like doing his thing, and I was just like, I could do that shit. So that's like when like I found the Spear Squad coordinator's email and stuff. I was like, hey, can I be Herky? And it was funny when I was sending that email, I almost wussed out because on their website they have Herky and they have Herky Security. It's not
Uh,
two separate things, but that's what it appears as.
mhm.
Uh, and so I almost emailed him. I was like, can I be Herky Security? But I was like, no, don't do that. You're gonna be Herky. So I emailed him, and then we did that tryout process that we talked about a little bit ago.
Dude,
So,
that's awesome. My experience with that was I joined Oregon State. I was in the band, and
oh
a little thing about Oregon State in 2018 is we were fucking bad, like
yeah,
1-11, 2-10 bad. So
uh,
I just sit there watch Justin Herbert put up 55 against us, and OSU first down, dun, dun, like our fucking first down. I was sitting there, I'm like, this is miserable, and the band kids were just kind of assholes.
really?
Yeah, because well, I joined a fraternity and I didn't join like the big dogs on campus. Like I joined just fucking goober house, right? So and they're like, "Oh, you're in a frat? Gonna drink beer at practice, frat boy? Huh? Huh? You want to do this, frat boy?" I was like, "Dude, am I getting bullied by band kids right now?" Like, so so a guy in my fraternity was Benny the Beaver mascot, and I'm just like, dude, I love all of this, but I just don't want to be like stuck to the band sitting there. Like I want to be out in the field, and then just every year we got better, so it worked out for me.
Good.
So
Yeah. Story.
in terms of like Herky and Iowa, what makes Iowa stand out in the Big Ten in your opinion? What makes Iowa unique?
It's a good question. I feel like for Iowa, you could make claims of, like the same claim. I feel like for a lot of schools, like for why they're unique, like a lot of them will say like, oh well, we have this tradition, this whatnot.
Mm,
And when it comes to traditions, I mean, the one that everybody knows is the Iowa wave, like where we wave to the children's hospital.
mm,
So I mean that's one way that we're unique. I would say that Iowa though, our school, Iowa City. Okay, let's back up. Iowa City is like the most liberal place in Iowa you will ever experience, and good or bad doesn't matter. It's just how it is.
mm,
And so they kind of have that like that kind of culture where it's just like everybody's like very welcoming of everything, I guess. If
mm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I would say in that way, Iowa is a little bit different than a lot of the other Big Ten teams, but that's just how Iowa City is. Iowa fans in general, it's a lot of like rural, like farmers, like yeehaw kind of people. So like they're not about that. So it's an interesting dynamic. Like at the core of it, where the university is, it's a very welcoming city. But like the fan base, not so much.
Mm.
So
So it's kind of like maybe University of Iowa is kind of leaning more towards like how do I word this well? Progressive, and they're kind of more accepting and out there and willing to grow and learn rather than stick to
yeah,
like older ways compared to like Nebraska or other teams in the Big Ten that might be also kind of in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, I would say that's right.
And also, but then the fans are like from Des Moines or something, and then
Hey, look at that.
yeah, I know my shit. Well, state of Oregon is the state of Oregon. So I mean, they're actually no state of Oregon. Like a lot of people think we're all just like Portland, like just like super liberal. But then there's Eastern Oregon exists, and that's pretty much Idaho.
Yeah.
So Oregon State is also, you got your super progressive people, but then you got your farmers, and I love them all. I love them all. University of Oregon, though, that is, I don't think I've seen a single conservative University of Oregon fan. Eugene is hippie town, USA, man. There are
Okay.
so many weed stores in Eugene. Uh, have you ever gone down to Ames and just like hung out with people down there?
My freshman year, one time I went to Ames and partied. My high school, so I lived like 30 minutes away from Ames growing up.
Mm.
My town was called Little Ames. Like I think so many people from my graduating class went to Iowa State. I would say probably like 80% of the people did, and then like 10% went to Iowa, and the other 10 went wherever else.
Mm.
So I was fairly familiar with Iowa State people. I actually went down there a couple times my freshman year. Now that I think about it, and just hung out with people there.
How far away is it?
From Iowa City, it's like 2 hours 15.
Okay.
So not crazy.
For us, the University of Oregon it was 50 minutes.
Oh
So you
wow.
you could drive down there and drive back in the same day and wouldn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So the amount of times I've gone down to Eugene, Oregon, just wearing all orange just to fuck
Yeah.
with people has been absolutely fantastic. But in terms of well, I don't even know where fuck, I just lost my train of thought.
No, you're good.
Uh Talking about Ames, University of Oregon rivalry. Uh, that's another thing. I've seen other schools with multiple rivalries and kind of the dynamic. Like the SEC, everyone hates each other, and then
Yep.
there's Bama, where they just kind of exist and being Bama. The Big Ten, Iowa, I've always kind of perceived it as a little bit like that, but then you kind of have the. Let me rephrase this. SEC, everyone gangs up on each other. Pac-12, you got your Oregon State, and like maybe Washington gets in there. Arizona State. You kind of like your one rival. I feel like Big Ten is kind of the mixture of the two. Like you got your main rivals of Iowa State and like Nebraska, but then you're like the fucking spoiler makers come into town and just like upset number two Iowa.
Yeah.
So is
No.
that would that be right to assume? Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some teams in the Big Ten that I genuinely don't care about.
Mm,
Like Maryland, Northwestern,
mm.
Purdue, kind of. Indiana, like they just haven't made a big enough impact on us for me to notice. I'm sure they've beat us in some big stages. I remember Purdue beat us pretty big in basketball a couple years ago, but like it's just not really as much beef there as
Mm.
there is with other teams.
And
So
another thing I'd like to say is this: when you're why being a mascot I think is super cool is some of these historic, I'll call them institutions because they go deeper than football. and being the face of like the University of Iowa or Oregon State University and representing yourself out to alumni, whether it's weddings or like that one kid who wants to take a photo. I've always just thought the power of like representing these institutions while getting to put your own flair to it, be it, your own interactions, what you sign up for, or slapping a big dude's ass. Uh, I've always found that to be super special and really cool. So I don't know how other mascots might perceive it. They might perceive it more as a job, but I would guess that you and I are kind of on the same boat of just kind of like really liking to extend the university because you're the biggest fan, right, of the sports team.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
honestly, do you have any like closing thoughts or any final things you want to get out there of from Herky Hawkeye to Hawkeye Nation or anything else out there?
Yeah, I think my time as Herky was, like you were saying, it was something like super special. I joined and saw a big roller coaster ride. COVID knocked us down, we got back up. And when we got back up after COVID, I had to deal with a completely new team. And so they actually called me like Papa Herc because like I was the oldest one on the team. And so it was a super special experience I had in college. And it was one that like I'm super glad that I ended up sending that email because it became like part of who I was in college. And it's still impacted where I am today. I'm just super grateful for all the experiences I got.
I mean, you literally carry it with you. It's on your ass. Like,
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, there's nothing like it.
do you think it's just kind of changed the way you kind of like perceive, not like your day to day, like, but do you think it's kind of influenced the way you might like look at things? Like, because the experience of being a mascot, when you're looking at someone and someone looks right back at you, but they don't like see you, they see like a literal caricature. It kind of like changes the way you think about things a little bit. You're like, you would just see someone completely different. Do you think it's not to get all sappy, but do you think it's changed you at all? Like the way you kind of see things, or at least your dance moves at all?
Definitely my dance moves. The stanky leg, I got that on lock
Oh,
now.
Stanky Leg's a
Yeah,
classic. I
that's
break
a
that out.
go-to. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. No, I definitely think about things different than how I did when I first came into college, and whether that's just molding from college itself or from Herky. I definitely think differently now about things, and I could definitely attribute Herky to that as well. Um, but yeah, kind of lost my train of thought just now, but um,
Just
yeah.
just wholesome sappy moments just to conclude this out before. I mean, I'm gonna end the recording, but I'm gonna tell you some Pac-12 championship
Yeah,
stories
okay,
because
okay.
we got some on lock. But yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on. I don't think like I said, I'll edit this all down and
Yeah,
it'll be all fine. But guys, welcome to episode 8 of Behind the Mascot. Herky, Tyler, fucking awesome seeing you, man. I don't know what the PEMDAS is. We might have Stanford Tree next or the Sparty. Ooh, shit, Sparty. What should I say?
oh,
So
Sparty.
what should I ask Sparty when they come on?
Well, one good thing to talk about right now is how they've been handling what's been going on in Michigan State. I don't know if you know about that or not.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Shooting there recently, and a lot of the Big Ten's been showing a lot of support to them
Mm,
over that. So that'd be interesting to talk to them about that. Um, but other than that, Sparty itself is a legacy program. Like they're
mm,
very well known about everybody. They were on the cover of like an NCAA football game,
mm.
like a decade ago or something. So like it's a very well known mascot. There's a lot that you could dig into with that. You'll have a good time with them.
I can go into University of Michigan. I can go into my troll bucket, but yeah,
Yeah.
man, Tyler, thanks so much for coming on. Once again, I already said the ending. I never know how to end these things, so I'm just gonna end. All right,
You're all good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a
all right.
blast.
See you, boy.